we go. What up, y'all? No, I knew I was live. I'm trying to go live on Instagram right now. Is it still tripping? Cause that's the thing. Like I'm watching also on my phone without Wi-Fi. And it seems cool to me. He said, nah, we good. It's just YouTube. Okay. Yeah, cause I'm like, yo, I'm watching from like a couple different devices and it looks cool. Big Ray to Don in the chat. What's good? Thank you for joining. Please share the stream if you wouldn't mind. But yeah, fuck the internet sometimes, yo. It's crazy. He said, oh, nah, I mean like when you play a YouTube video. Yeah, nah, fuck that, I guess. But that nigga was not for me though. I'm not gonna lie to you. He says like when you talk and all that, it's all good. Okay, cool. But the Larry Jackson shit though was fucking crazy. The Larry Jackson shit was crazy in its own way. Like I think parts of it were good and parts of it were really informative, like the Telecommunications Act in 1996. Like I didn't really know a lot of that, so I thought that was interesting. For those that don't know, Larry Jackson talked about how the Telecommunications Act of 1996 changed the landscape of media, period. And let me back it up and like tell you who Larry Jackson is for those that don't know. Larry Jackson is a very, very popular music executive and entrepreneur. And he created Apple Music. He had a hand in Beats by Dre. Very long career at radio. Huge hand in, you know, a lot of your favorite early to mid 2000s hits like Leona Lewis, Keep Bleeding Love, and Kelly Clarkson, Since You've Been Gone, Alicia Keys. Just everything you can imagine. He's kind of done it in the music industry, and now he's transitioned into tech. And his latest venture is Gamma, which is one of the biggest. That he says is not a label; it's a tech company, but for all intents and purposes, we're gonna say it's a label. Uno says, I love that answer, talking about the Telecommunications Act. That's a good way of saying we buying it. I'm dead. Ruben805, thank you for joining. Please share the stream if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, I definitely suggest if you're interested in the music business, go watch that interview, Joe Budden and Larry Jackson. He does drop a couple gems in the interview. But I do think like there was a couple things about it that did bother me. One of those is when like the same thing that Uno said, and thank you for hopping over to Instagram to Uno. Uno said that he felt like he was talking in circles a little bit and didn't answer a lot of questions. I don't necessarily think you didn't say he was talking in circles, I'm paraphrasing, but you did say he talked a lot and didn't answer the questions. I do think he was vague. He was a little vague because of his legal ties to different companies, which gets in the way of a clean interview, I think. Heartless XO, thank you for joining the chat. Please share if you wouldn't mind. We're talking about the Joe Budden and Larry Jackson interview. If you haven't watched it, I suggest you go watch it. But I think that the biggest thing that bothered me about that interview, because he had a lot of good responses. If you have the same vantage point as him, and I didn't know he had been in the music industry, working at radio at a high level since 16 years old. So he's been a millionaire for the majority of his young adult life. And beyond that, he's lived at the upper echelon of the music industry. And very similar to politics, when you're at the high end of politics, when you're at the high end of the music industry, you're in a bubble, right? And so, and especially if you're living in the music industry and you're living in like the tech world, because the tech world is all about analytics. And I think when everything is about analytics, it doesn't leave a lot of room for culture, and it doesn't leave a lot of room for nurturing new talent. Analytics by nature makes you chase trends. And so, for instance, I think a question Joe Budden asked was about like Sexy Red. He said that, I think previous to this question, they were Larry Jackson said something to the effect that like everybody is listening to the things that they want to hear, and this is one of the best times to be in the music industry ever. And Joe Budden eventually responded by saying like, I know that you're saying that, but why does it seem like one type of voice is louder than all the other voices? So why is it that we only hear Sexy Red when quite frankly, like, I don't think that a lot of us want to hear that. And throughout the interview, Larry Jackson was like bigging up Sexy Red. I don't have a problem with Sexy Red, right? Like, I just want to be very clear about that. Like, I do think she should have a voice as well. Like, I don't have to listen to her, and I don't even mind her music. I just, she doesn't deserve all the hate she gets, but I understand some of it. But anyways, Larry Jackson is, Sexy Red comes from Larry Jackson's label. And so anyways, I say all that to say, I think that everything that he was saying was good was coming from a very corporate lens and a very analytical lens, because he would always refer back to the numbers. They're doing excellent. Oh, I love so-and-so, and I love Sexy Red and her team with so-and-so and so-and-so. They're excellent. Look at it. They're doing excellent numbers. They just went 2 times platinum. And it's like, nigga, who cares? Like, is this shit dope? Is this shit actually really, really, really dope? You know what I'm saying? Like, and some of Sexy Red songs are, not all of them are. And beyond that, I think the interview really made me think about how we should be approaching content. Uno said, yeah, he Nick Fury. I'll refresh on the interview and I'll tell you my better thoughts Monday. I watched it 2 weeks ago, so it's kind of not fresh. His opinion is from where his money is. That's, yeah, very true. Like, yeah, I think he's just in that bubble of big money, big success. And like, I don't know that and that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with him being in that bubble, but he talks as if he's really tapped into what's popping in the streets. You know what I'm saying? And like, I'm not saying I'm sure he has access to everything, so I know he knows what's going on, but it sounds like he's basing what's lit on analytics, and like the analytics has never really been tapped into the streets like that, you know? And, Uno says Sexy is signed to Gamma. All of his artists are winning. Yeah, I mean, Usher is signed to Gamma. Like, that's absolutely crazy. Uno says, so of course, that's his point of view. It's just like it would be mine. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know that I would let King Trip is back in the chat. One tiny thing. Ruby and Liz is in the chat. Thank you for joining. Please share the stream if you wouldn't mind. I don't know that even if I had hella bread, that would be my lens, because I think, and I say that now as someone who doesn't have shareholders, so culture is always my driving force. Maybe my answer would be different if I had shareholders. He definitely does have shareholders, and that's kind of who he's beholden to, so I get that. But yeah, I just feel like his answers are correct if you look at things from a capitalistic standpoint and not from like a art and culture standpoint. Doo-Wop is in the chat. What's good? Thank you for joining. Please share the stream if you wouldn't mind. The name Uno says, yeah, I agree, but if your numbers show what they show, then his feelings are always going to come with that. You can't have numbers, well, big numbers, without the streets. That's how he feels, which I agree to an extent. No, you fully can have big numbers without the streets. Taylor Swift don't have the streets. You know what I'm saying? Kids, Doja Cat don't have the streets. And yeah, I'm not saying he's wrong though. I just definitely want to be clear about that. I'm not saying his viewpoint is wrong. I just think that like, I think that like, for instance, another thing he said, I think TikTok is 10 times more valuable than MTV. I don't know that I agree with that. But if you, again, my whole point is the lens that he's looking at it from. He's looking at it from a money analytical lens. From that lens, 1000% it's undeniable that TikTok is more valuable than MTV. But from a cultural lens, I have to fully disagree, because MTV wasn't like, TikTok is solely about the content. It's not even about the content creator. It's about the content and the output and like how you can just feed the algorithm. Whereas MTV wasn't that. MTV was highly curated, community building, trend setting, standard setting. There's none of that on TikTok. Uno says she has the white streets. Those streets are different than ours. She don't have none of the streets, bro. She don't have the streets. She has what matters is population. You feel what I'm saying? Like, there are, like, black people are only 14.4% of the United States. That means, and I think white people are just like over 80% of the United, over 80% of the United States. And Taylor has that. Like, it's a numbers game, I think. He says that's where we disagree to the extent, but that's fair. He says, cause you're right, to big megastar, that's the streets, you have to know. Uno says, I guess from his viewpoint of, you're going off numbers of people that click, then it is. I think he means music videos versus TikTok content, but TV was huge just as phone was huge, so I do disagree. Yeah, no, again, like, I think, to me, he was very clear how he defined success, and numbers have a lot to do with that. And he's in the business of music, so of course he's selling music. Like, he's not out here to fucking connect the coast. So we have very, very, very different goals. So again, I just want to be very clear. I'm not saying that he's wrong, but it just sounds like he's very corporate, you know what I'm saying? Like, TikTok is nothing like MTV in my mind. To compare the two just because young people like both of them is, I think, it's a false equivalency. That was something that really stood out to me. Like, yo, MTV, and he was there. Like, he was there with TRL, and he was there with 106 in Park, and he worked at radio. Like, radio is not TikTok. Radio TikTok can't do radio. TikTok can't do MTV. It's different. It's like the curation part, the community part, the a face you can connect with versus just connecting with the content. Like, in my opinion, TikTok content is more like the new emoji. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you want to tell somebody how you feel, you send them a TikTok reel that represents that, or you send them a reel or a TikTok video that represents that. So they're more like visual memes, or they're more like um, yeah, emojis. Whereas um, MTV worked. MTV worked because the curation was just fire. Like from the artists that did the in between MTV weird ass commercial things to the way they connected you to different communities. Like you got to see, if you were on the West Coast, you got to see into New York lifestyle. If you were on the East Coast, you got to see into the West Coast lifestyle. The way they were tapped into the scene, like having Fab Five Freddy be a host when he was really, really big on the art scene, and he was one of those people that was connecting hip hop and the art scene in the streets at that time. And to have him on TV was really dope. But I think bigger than that, MTV had scarcity, right? Like you couldn't turn on, there was no MTV on demand, right? Like you had to tap in to Rap City at whatever time it came on. You had to tap into TRL at whatever time it came on. And I think that lack of scarcity creates disillusionment between the consumer, between the listener and the artist. So like if I have everything I want on demand, if I can stream your music on Spotify on demand at all times, and then I can go to your Instagram and see what the fuck you're up to right now, right in this moment, like you're just a TV channel to me that I'm flicking through. Like I don't give a fuck about you. Like when the next channel and the next show is hot, I'm that's it. You know what I'm saying? Look at Krishan Rock. Her channel is cold right now. You feel what I'm saying? It's heating back up because she's going through all these trials and shit, but like niggas just want to see the train wreck. Like so they're just flicking through channels. The lack of scarcity is, I think, one of the biggest factors that made MTV work. And that's why I think you can't even compare TikTok and MTV. Uno says, to me, TikTok content is a commercial for the product. 100%. MTV was the product. There was no YouTube. You made videos for MTV. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, like I said, the curation part was huge. You couldn't just get a video on MTV. Like there was a process, and still is a process, because we had a video on MTV last year, and like to get a video on MTV, you have to get it closed captioned, which thank God is a lot easier to do now, but you have to get the video closed captioned. It has to be in a particular format, available in a couple ways. You can't just like upload it to just wherever you want. It has to be uploaded to a specific server, and then you have to pay a specific type of promoter. So and then you still might not get your video on MTV. So it's really difficult to get your video on television. And I think that's why there was just higher quality and people cared more about the music videos, because no matter what you saw, whether you loved it or you hated it, it would start a conversation. Which I do think TikTok content does. TikTok content starts conversations, but more so TikTok content it facilitates conversations. Like I said, it's like emojis, so you can say a whole conversation with just sending a TikTok video. But I do think it's worth watching. Like I'm not saying Larry Jackson is wrong. He just has a very corporate lens. But if you are in the music business, if you are making music and you want to know how music works, watch that interview. And let me finish telling you about the Telecommunication Act that he talked about, because I started talking about that and never finished it. So and this is the last thing I'll say about the interview. So one of the most interesting points he brought up was how the Telecommunications Act, I believe of 1996, I think that was the year, changed the landscape of music and media, because it got rid of regulation. So it allowed mergers, so you could kind of monopolize media industry. So for instance, Clear Channel, which that makes me feel so old. Like, you got to be old to know Clear Channel. But Clear Channel was one of the biggest radio station companies in America. But when that law got lifted in 1996, they were able to buy all the other radio stations, and then that's what brought you iHeartRadio. And because radio became nationalized and it's not localized anymore, that's why you might hear Charlemagne the God for your morning show in LA, even though Charlemagne's in New York. And he's going to talk about New York things. He's going to talk about New York artists. They're going to program it from a New York lens, but you're in LA. And so that's why people feel disconnected to the radio, because it's not really tapped into their communities. We actually in smaller towns are a lot luckier on radio, because we're the last radio stations left in all of the country that our DJs are actually tapped into our community. Like, The Beat fucked up by letting Sandy Danger go. The Beat super fucked up by letting Sandy Danger go, because she's really, really tapped in to the Pomo, Santa Maria community, Lompoc community, and in a way that's kind of hard to fabricate. And the owners and the people that run that station are not tapped into the community, and they play better music, I think, than Wild 106. So if they just let Sandy Danger and Mr. Butter just do their thing, I think they would be unbeatable, because they're really tapped into the community in a way that other stations aren't. Q95 and Oxnard, Mambo, Danica, they're really tapped into Oxnard. Big Bear tapped into Oxnard. Like, so and who knows how long that will last, right? Like, there might come a time where we're hearing Charlemagne the God on our morning shows. So don't take the radio that we have for granted, because again, we're the last places in America that have radio that's still tapped into the community, where you can still go up to your radio station and promote something. Like, if you live in New York, you can't just go up to Power 105 and be like, yo, Charlemagne, put me on the Breakfast Club. That's not ever going down unless you're super popping. But like, I've seen Uno on Q95. I've seen The Dark Room on Q95. I've been on Q95. I've been on KPAT. I've been on Wild 106. Like, we can still walk into our radio stations and have impact in our community. So don't take that shit for granted. But yeah, if you're really into music, go watch that Joe Budden and Larry Jackson interview. And shout out to everybody that stayed in the chat, even though we had a couple technical difficulties. If you missed any part of the stream, you can watch it on YouTube or Twitch, and I will upload it to our feed as soon as I can. I hope everybody has a great weekend. To all the dads out there, happy Father's Day. To all the moms out there, stop being lazy. Do not give the dads sex. Give them sex, and give them other things though. Sex cannot be the gift. That's what we determined in the chat. So give them sex all you want, but that's not the gift. Get them an actual gift for Father's Day. Everybody have a great weekend. And Juneteenth next weekend. We have a short week next week. It's Juneteenth. I'm not going to broadcast on Juneteenth Day. I'm going to celebrate my Black freedom. You should be celebrating my Black freedom too. If you like the stream, please make sure you go get yourself some merch. Shout out to our sponsors, Station Head, Favor, and Connect Cannabis. Uno says, watch Kendrick. Stream the Kendrick. Kenny and Friends concert. Ken and Friends. And I will be back on Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. I hope everybody has a great and safe weekend. Deuces.
Lonzo on the bass, so you know the bitch. Just me and you. What's good with you? Yo king, yo prince, my queen, my bitch. Your lips, your eyes, your hips, your thighs. We met tonight. I hit tonight. You been, I been, I hit it right. She dick, much ice. You smoke, I drink. I know you think that I did. I made a 20 out of 25 cents. I got the enemy streaming my shit.